The beauty of crying. Crying is something that I openly welcome with open arms today, but I have definitely not always been that way. If you're similar to me and growing up in a household where there was a lot of pressure, societal pressure, in terms of being tough, in terms of not showing any weakness or any vulnerability, and maybe you never even saw your pops cry, which in my case, I never saw that as well. You didn't necessarily have a model for crying and for tears and for that emotional expression to be looked at as okay. It's one of those things where, as a kid, we model our parents' behaviors, and it's not a matter of words, what they tell us to do, it's a matter of their actions and the actions that they take. And for myself personally, my relationship with tears and with crying is a beautiful one today. I cry often, almost on a daily basis. I have certain daily practices that really, really go deep inside of my emotions, where I feel a sense of appreciation, a sense of gratitude, a sense of love. And I see that there's so much beauty out here in the world, so much we have to be thankful for. There's so much beauty in music, in arts, and love. However that shows up for each and individual person is different. But today I want to discuss a little bit about how we can learn to cultivate and tap into those deep and beautiful and sometimes dark emotions where tears are necessary for us to be able to feel it. So for me, as I mentioned, I didn't have a model for crying. My dad, rest in peace, just over 20 years ago, he passed away when I was 12. And before that point, I can only remember seeing him cry one time, and that was at the funeral of his mother. And he was wearing shades during that time. And when I looked at him and I saw a tear coming down his face and he looked at me, I remember him quickly wiping the tear away from his face. And that's really the only time I've ever seen or had ever seen my pops cry. And as a kid growing up, there's definitely this societal pressure, being a boy, to be tough, to not be vulnerable, to not show weakness, to get it done. There's all of these messages that we take from the environment, that we also take from our family, and that we also take from our culture. And today, I feel very fortunate to be able to feel comfortable in expressing myself when it comes to these tears. And sometimes these tears can be of sadness, they can be of joy, they can be of fear, of anticipation. It doesn't really matter where the tears are coming from, but just to be able to allow that energy to move and to be expressed is the most important aspect. And when we're able to really slow down and be present with ourselves, and when we're able to feel the sensations in our body that can actually elicit the emotions of tears, and instead of wiping our face, or instead of kind of shutting that out, but being present with it and allowing it to be, then it really allows us to be able to maneuver through different emotions in our lives and allow that to just flow. Instead of feeling like we're stuck, or we're tight, or we're just suppressing continuously, because just like any other habit, when we work at something, and in this case, if it's suppressing emotions, the more that we do that, the more good we're going to get at it. So for myself, I spent some time, this was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I spent some time, I was able to disconnect and leave the country, and spent some time in South America, in Ecuador, to be exact. And I was going through a yoga teacher training and mindfulness meditation training. And while I was out there, it was the first time I had really had a extended amount of time to really be disconnected and present with myself and everything that was coming up without being in my home environment and home country. And while I was there and in nature and in the mountains and really cultivating this time of stillness and presence, I cried. I cried like I've never cried before up until that point. And I was able to see so many things that I had been carrying throughout my life, from my early childhood to, high school years to me as an adult, and how I was showing up at that particular moment. And I realized just the pressure that not only sometimes we unconsciously hold from society, but also the pressure that we hold from different lineages, but also the pressure that we hold from our daily responsibilities. And sometimes what we need the most, instead of suppressing, instead of not feeling, instead of numbing, is to really just relax and be present and allow those emotions to show up. Allow those tears to be expressed. And it's not the easiest thing, especially for a man, Vulnerability, putting your emotions in front of you and living life that way, it's something that can be considered very dangerous, at least here in Western culture. But when we're able to just be present with what's coming up, allow the space and the opportunity to feel with no judgment, and close our eyes and experience those sensations and those tears, if we're being led to express those, then it opens us up. It enhances our awareness. It shows us something deeply about ourselves that maybe we had a conscious awareness of, but was again suppressing it. It goes deeper underneath that to what the real cause of that is. And there's a beauty that comes within that. There's a beauty that comes within allowing that release. It's just like anything else. We feel this resistance, we feel this pressure. And then once that pressure is released, we feel lighter. And when we feel lighter, we have that love on showcase, that love throughout our body that permeates from our head to our toes. And we're able to step further forward into our lives, into our next stage, and most importantly, into the present moment that leads us to where it is that we ultimately desire to go. Sending you love, sending you peace, and sending you an opportunity to be still, be present, and allow the energy to move throughout your body and be expressed with love.